Welcome back in Sports with Eaves. We've got a fantastic show, 4 pressing issues. Of course, I had to bring in what I consider big time, the Rick Bosich from WDRB Sports. He's been around the Louisville area doing sports and covering sports for over 30 years. He's got a wealth of knowledge, and we're going to test his education ability today on Sports with Eaves. Let's get to the topics. First and foremost, I am a James Bond fan. We're going to talk about Sean Connery, tremendous actor, and I love him dearly. Second, University of Kentucky goes down to the Georgia Bulldogs 14-3. We're going to talk about some of the issues that Coach Stoops has. Third, has COVID-19 got the best of the University of Louisville football team, and will they be able to recover this coming week against Virginia? And fourth, a subject close to my heart, but of course, University of Louisville is entangled in one of the biggest FBI scams ever with the NCAA. Arizona has received its letter of allegation. It has over 9 violations, 5 level 1, the most serious allegations that there can be. We'll be back after the break.
Did you know that the word alma mater comes from the Latin meaning nurturing mother? One of our primary objectives at Simmons College of Kentucky is to nurture late bloomers. So it doesn't matter if you struggle through high school just to graduate, or even if you earn your GED. We don't look at a student's past, we look at their potential. Simmons College of Kentucky, creating the next generation of thinkers.
Welcome back to Sports with Eaves.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Sean Connery, everyone ever understands. 7 James Bond sequels. Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Thunderbolt, For Your Eyes Only, Diamonds Are Forever, which I truly love, and Never Say Never Again, along with many others that he has done. Hunt the Red October is my favorite, one of the favorite shows ever put out. I had an opportunity to go on that nuclear sub in Norfolk, Virginia, and stand like I was a movie producer. And I was telling Sean what to do. Life well lived. We just have to understand he's left a remarkable mark on this country. Back in 1967, before philanthropy was huge, he gave his entire salary to the 4th James Bond movie, to charity. Left us with dementia, left us quietly in his sleep. I just want everybody to understand that's a man that's had a huge impact on my life, and I'm sure on many others, with the James Bond movies.
See it as Joey Gatewood is going down. All good DBs, all good defensive players go for that ball. Does look like it was ripped out. Here's a better shot at it. Can't tell there.
Kentucky's offense is non-existent. Last 2 games, they have not scored a touchdown. We've seen multiple quarterbacks. Touchdown Terry Wilson. We've seen Joey Gatewood play against Georgia. We've got the special co-host to Sports with Eaves, Rick Bosich. Rick, I appreciate you sitting in with me.
Anytime, Jerry. We go back, 40 years?
We go back too far. And I'm an elephant. This gentleman
Is a
said
dinosaur.
that Rick Bosich said that Jeff Hall was better than Jerry Eaves. And the 86 team would have defeated the 80 team.
No, I didn't say that.
What did you say?
I said the 80 team would win, and you did.
We did in the rematch.
But I had to do a comparison of players. I compared the 5 starters, and I gave the 80 team 3 of the 5 spots. I should have given them 4, but I didn't want to hurt their feelings. So I figured I'd give them the Jeff Hall over Jerry Eaves things because I knew you could take it.
I can't take it.
You've reminded me.
I remind you every time. I can't take that.
He's reminded me of that for 30
And Jeff's the best.
years.
I love Jeff. He can really shoot the ball. But he would never got one off on me.
No, he wouldn't.
I was a lockdown defender.
I know you were. I remember we were in the car driving to the NBA draft camp, and he was telling me about he scored 35, was it?
Oh, yes, on Isaiah.
Right, and I wasn't sure about that, so I looked it up, and it was true, and I tweeted it out, and Isaiah liked the tweet. So, yeah, it was true. We put 35 on Isaiah Thomas.
In the Silverdome. Silverdome rookie record 35. But Isaiah did kill me on NBA TV.
Okay.
He said he went to the bench with the Detroit Pistons and said, I need help with Jerry Eaves. Rick Mahorn, who is a very close friend of mine still today, we do Bottom Line Sports on satellite together, said, Jerry Eaves? He's like, I know, as bad as it sounds, he's killing me. So I was like, dang, you didn't have to say that, Isaiah, but that is true. The great Isaiah Thomas. But Rick and I go way back. First question for you, Rick.
Okay.
The benching of Terry Wilson, or is that inappropriate? Was he injured? Who will start the next game, University of Kentucky Vanderbilt? They've got a bye week this week. And do you think Joey Gatewood should start?
Yeah, I think it's time to move on to Gatewood. I mean, he's a younger guy. I think Wilson has had his chance and hasn't been effective. And, you know, I think at some point, I think Mark Stoops has done a tremendous job since he's been at UK. Really has. He had a great philosophy of how he wants to get things done. Most other schools have gone offensive guy, defense has been his calling card. But if you could criticize him for one thing they've done, he hasn't recruited and developed a quarterback since he's been there. The best quarterback he's had was last year when they moved Lynn Bowden from receiver to quarterback. That's the best quarterback play they've had. And as good as they've been on defensive line, and linebacker, secondary, running backs, you know.
Benny Snell.
Yeah. I mean, they need to figure it out at quarterback because we all know the way football's played today, and you've got to be able to put 30 to 40 points on the board. Even Nick Saban's come around. He's a defensive guy.
Nick Saban did say that at the beginning of the season.
I mean, you've got to score points. And you not only are at risk of losing games, but when, as you mentioned, when you lose 14-3, you're not entertaining your fans. And if you want to get your fans upset with you, lose and play a boring style of play.
Offensive coordinator Graham is from Cincinnati.
Right.
He's known for passing the ball around. High explosive offense. What do you think is the reason why? Has Coach Stoops stifled his ability for play calls, or they just don't have the talent at the quarterback position?
I think it's more the latter, but I understand what you're saying. I think Mark Stoops is a little bit of an old school coach of let's play a more conservative offense. Let's run the ball. Let's eliminate turnovers and win with our defense. But their offense is so bad that their defense is going to pretty much have to, limit teams to a shutout or 7 points for them to win games, and it's not working. And they've got a real good defense. You look at what they did to Tennessee. You look at what they did to Mississippi State. Their defense, they've got some players on that defense.
They're not going to have two pick sixes back to back, Rick.
No,
you're not going to have two pick sixes back to back in college ever again.
No, like they did against Tennessee.
Yes,
right. But their defense hasn't been the problem. Their offense has been the problem. I mean, they held Georgia to 14.
Yes, but a lot of people say that Georgia's offense is inept. Let's go back to
Georgia scored more than that, though, against Alabama.
They did, but Bama's defense is not the best this year.
Okay.
Bama wants to outscore.
I'm with you. So I think it's
Auburn.
I think it's big picture of they got to put more imagination, more resources, creative resources, more recruiting emphasis into offense and make it a bigger priority. I don't think it's been a big priority for him since he's been. Do you? Since he's been at UK? I mean, they've had Snell, they've had Bowden, and they've had some good offensive linemen, but they really haven't had a quarterback, and they really haven't had great receivers either, have they? I mean, they haven't.
Not really. No. Things come in time. Now, Gatewood has a great resume.
Okay.
He's huge. He's supposed to have a strong arm. We're going to find out about his football IQ, but I think it was time to give him the opportunity.
I agree.
It's the old saying, Rick. George Williams and I argued on my radio show numerous times. If it's close between a senior and a sophomore, the sophomore plays.
You're right.
That's the brutal part of college athletics.
You're right.
There is no seniority. There's no, I'm going with the good or Gipper. No. If they're close, Coach Crum had to make that decision in 1980. It was Jerry Eaves, sophomore, the very best individual and great player, Tony Branch, senior. He had to make the decision with the sophomore. Your upside is greater. Kentucky has to play Gatewood. I don't think we'll see touchdown Terry unless Joey gets hurt, and it is time. I would have started with Gatewood. If it was close in preseason, I would have never played Terry.
Well, they weren't sure, though, in the very beginning he was going to be eligible. So, I mean, that's...
Well, they were only holding him for the Auburn game, Rick. Everyone understood that the SEC, he had got his waiver from the NCAA. The SEC was just holding him because he came from Auburn. Right. He would have been my starter after the Auburn game.
I mean, there's only 4 games to go, and 2 of them are against Alabama and Florida. So the best they can hope
Big boy
for, they're 2-4. The best they can hope for is 4-6. So make the best of the rest of the situation, and I agree with you. Play Gatewood and find out, do I have a quarterback for 2021, or am I going to have to play a freshman, or am I going to have to really go out and find a JUCO or something? But use the rest of this season to figure out if Gatewood's your guy or not.
As long as you're using JUCO quarterbacks in the SEC, you'll never be successful.
I agree.
You have to go get a young kid.
I mean, they've got some young guys, though. They need to figure out, is Joey Gatewood the guy we can plan for next season? Because this is such a strange year anyway. I mean, you didn't have spring practice.
I agree.
And you know, they're in a just like every school's in a bad situation. But I agree with you. Go with the younger guy.
There you go.
Go with Eaves over Branch. And I love Tony.
There's no question about that. Go with Eaves over Jeff Hall. Last question.
All right.
Alabama, Tuscaloosa. Ooh, that's just going to be a heartbreaker. And Florida. Of course, we got to watch the best of Florida in Gainesville. Does Kentucky have a chance to salvage a bowl this year?
Well, everybody goes to a bowl this year if you want to. That's they
That's every year. They've got more bowl games than they do teams.
They've got more
Division
bowl
One.
games, yeah. But
quality bowl game.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, they're going to be 4-6. Mm-hmm. So
at the best.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to beat Vandy. They're not going to beat Alabama. They're probably not going to beat Florida. And then they finished the last game in South Carolina at home. Now they've had success
that's no
against
easy
South
win, but that's
no easy win.
And when, as you know, against Missouri lost.
When you get to the last game of the year and there's not going to be any fans there and you're 3-6, it's going to come down to how much pride and how much motivation the players on each team have at that point, right?
It's going to depend on how cold it is, Rick, and a lot of people aren't going to want to play. You're so right. Let's move on to the Cardinals.
Okay.
Oh gosh, dear to my heart. 1-5. 2-5 overall. I hate even mentioning this because everything went so well for Coach Stoops. But was Coach Stoops' first year a fluke?
I wouldn't call it a fluke. There was a lot of games that could have gone either way, and they either
last year.
Yeah, right. Last year
and this year.
They won a lot of close games last year. This year it's not happening. Now this year they've thrown in some clunkers that they didn't throw in last year. That game against Georgia Tech. I mean, the way they played in the last part of the third quarter, the entire fourth quarter, they beat themselves. Mm-hmm. Pitt, the game's right here. A year ago against Pitt, they might have won that game because they made the plays you had to make. This year they haven't made them. They played well against Notre Dame. Now, last week, I was there at the Virginia Tech game, and you find out, that you're going to be down 9 players, almost all of your defensive line. Some people got mad at me because they fell down 21-0. And at that point in the game, considering how diminished their team was, there was a potential for a team to pack it in. They didn't do that, which shows me that the players and the coaches are still in sync. They still want to play for him, and they fought back and had a chance, to win the game. It didn't happen. So I don't think last year was a fluke. I think that this year, things even out over 2 years. Some years you get the breaks and some years you don't, and this year it hasn't worked for them.
Rick, let me explain something to you as a coach.
Okay.
When your team starts poorly, they're taking the pressure off of themselves.
Okay.
It's easier to play when you're down 21, when you're down 14,
okay,
than it is when it's 0-0 and you have to execute to win. Basketball teams do the same thing. Very poor the first 12, 14 minutes of the game so that they allow the team to get ahead so that they're comfortable. It's easier to play. A good team has to play from opening kickoff. And Louisville hasn't done that all season. That's one of the scary things. Secondly, Mr. Hawkins has had a monster year for Louisville. If you've taken him off of this year's team, I don't know if they've won a game.
Here's the give, and look at Hawkins. Here's Davian Hawkins. Lots of speed. He's got one angle to beat, and he will. Touchdown. 90 yards.
They call this one a buzzer beater.
I am amazed every time I watch him play because when I when you see him, when they bring him out for interviews, he's not a big guy. He's not. And he's durable. He's faster than, and if he gets an opening, he will break off a long run.
Yes, he will.
And he's very determined. And, I remember last year, I thought Hassan Hall was going to be the back, and it's like, no, it's going to be Javian Hawkins. Like, Javian Hawkins, he didn't do much the year before, and he was dynamite. He was one of the top 3 runners in the ACC. Now this year, he's been just as good, and their offensive line is not as good as it was last year. You remove Mekhi Becton, a first-round draft pick, and Tyler Haycraft, who's on a reserve squad, I think, with the Giants.
He is.
For him to do what he's doing, it's not like he's running behind Kentucky's offensive line, or he's running behind, Alabama's offensive line.
Right.
He's making a lot of these yards on his own. My concern with him is, as I started out by saying, he's not a big guy. I always worry about him getting, banged up.
You've got some great running backs in Louisville's history. Lenny Lyles, Michael Bush, Howard Stevens, my favorite, little small Howard. Looking at it, who do you think is the greatest running back in Louisville history, taking Lamar Jackson off the list?
That's a great question. When he was healthy, I might go with Michael Bush.
So would I.
Until he got that injury, unfortunately, against Kentucky. I mean, he was a tremendous, tremendous running back. I tell you, guys, who's underrated was Frank Moreau.
Okay, yes, Frank's on the list.
Who
yes.
ran, he made it in the NFL. He was a really good runner. And another guy who I'd say was a really good running back at U of L was Ralph Dawkins, who played for Coach Schnellenberger,
Yes.
and he played in the NFL for a while. So, I mean, and I didn't see Stevens. Wasn't there a guy named Peacock?
Peacock also, yes, was very good.
I mean, those guys were really
Roger
good.
Peacock.
Lenny Lyles is a Hall of Famer. So,
Yes.
I mean, you don't get any better
Baltimore
than Lenny
Colts,
Lyles.
my dad's favorite.
Yeah.
Lenny Lyles. Does Louisville recover from COVID-19?
It's hard to say.
Lost 9 players with contract tracing and all the things they're supposed to do. Most of the time, it is supposed to double. 15 minutes proximity over 3 times in an hour is supposed to put you in quarantine. Does Louisville lose more players this week against Virginia?
I think it's certainly possible, Jerry. I mean, we've seen Wisconsin have to get shut down because of what's happened to them. We've seen Florida have to postpone a game because of what's happened to them. So I think it's too soon to say, but if you told me that was I was surprised in Coach Satterfield's press conference on Monday. To me, the most interesting thing he said was that I think there was a discussion of canceling or postponing the game on Saturday once they found out that they were so diminished on the defensive line. If that defensive line room suffers more, guys being scratched, I think it could be an issue, Jerry.
Before we get into Arizona, basketball's getting ready to start. Bellarmine is going to play at the fairgrounds, University of Louisville at the Yum Center, 15% capacity. Seeing what we're seeing in football with how easy it is to contract COVID-19, do you think that basketball gets through December this year?
Yeah, I think it will, because I think it has to. I mean, I think they'll do everything they can. I think missing out on the NCAA tournament last year puts a lot of pressure on college basketball to come through somehow with a season this year and have an NCAA tournament.
For the financial restraints.
Yeah, without the if they don't have an NCAA tournament this year, they can't go another year without that money. They just can't do it. And I hope they do. You and I were sitting together in the end zone at the Greensboro Coliseum when I got my phone off and said, the NBA just shut down. Rudy Gobert tested positive, and you and I got up in our seats and walked out of the arena.
We did. I'm not saying I was scared or anything, but I sure left.
I said, this is real. We were sitting there when these Syracuse fans were all around us. It was Syracuse and North Carolina.
Absolutely.
And it was a pretty big game, and I looked down at my phone. I said, look at this. I showed him my phone, and that's when it really got real. Right?
It really did. When the NBA closed down, we understood they were the first professional league to shut down that we knew we were in trouble. The very next day, you were supposed to come on my show, but you had to go out with the press conference.
That's right.
When the ACC canceled.
That's right.
From 12 to 1.
And remember how bizarre that was, because I was in the press conference, and John Swofford said, we're going to play. Every league's on board. We had a conference call. We're going to do this as a group. By the time we walked out on the floor, the Big Ten had already bailed out first, and we were waiting for Leonard Hamilton to bring his team out.
Exactly.
And it really got crazy. So, I mean, that was more, how many, that was 8 months ago, about
Exactly.
8 months.
About 8 months ago.
And so I just think there's a lot of and they're going to do everything. The NBA showed it can be done. It's a different situation. Because
and
of the
cost
bubbles.
a ton of money. A ton of money
Right.
with the bubble.
But somehow I think they're going to try and get this in. So I hope they do.
I'm hoping so. For the well-being of the players, safety first. But without a doubt, financially, if the NCAA does not have a second NCAA tournament, they will be busted. And
a lot of schools are not going to be able to have basketball programs.
Exactly. Everyone will understand this is not amateur athletics. That's the only.
And it won't just be basketball. Then we've already seen
all the Olympic
swimming
sports,
and golf and field hockey and even places like Stanford, which has more money than you.
They've got an
cancel all their different programs.
Yes, they've got endowments and grants.
Yeah, they canceled 4 sports. This is Stanford.
Yes, they did.
I went to Indiana. They announced several weeks ago that they're expecting a $60 million shortfall. Yes. $60 million, and they're asking, fans and donors and alumni to contribute. They're not alone. It's going to be the same way at U of L, Kentucky, Ohio State, and wherever else you want to talk about.
COVID-19. 2020 has been a rough year. Let's just hope we can get through it healthy.
Amen.
Changing direction.
Uh-oh. Here comes the fastballs.
Without a doubt, Arizona Athletics receives notice of allegations, Rick. 5 level 1s. 5. Let me read you 2 of them. Lack of institutional control and failure to monitor by the university. A lack of head coach control by men's basketball coach Sean Miller. And on a cynical aspect, you may not know this, but there's 42 million reasons why the players should be upset at the schools that have gone through this situation between Louisville, LSU, Kansas, Arizona. You want to know why, Rick?
Why?
Since the allegations have come out, the universities have still paid $42 million out to Sean Miller, Bill Self,
right?
Will Wade,
right?
Auburn,
Bruce
Pearl. Still today, with these allegations going on, and as a former player and coach, they get what they deserve. But let's start first and foremost. The FBI sting that popped the University of Louisville, who was already on probation.
Yes, sir.
This is their second time around. And when you had the young lady with the NCAA that read the penalties the first time, spoke about Louisville's issues as being repugnant, which if people don't understand what that means, very bad, extremely bad. Where does the university go from here? They're trying to appeal. They had 1 level 1 at University of Louisville, 2 level 2s. Where does the University of Louisville go from here?
Well, they filed their response to what the NCAA said, and now it goes back to the NCAA, and they'll respond to Louisville's response. This has been going on now for 37 months?
Yes.
September 26th of 2017 is when this all began. So, Louisville's pushing back as firmly and as emphatically as they can. Whether they'll be successful or not, I'm not sure. I agree. I tend to agree with you that I think they're looking at least another year out of the NCAA tournament whenever the punishment comes down, which probably won't be until next spring or next summer. Because when you are caught, I think the NCAA, there's a certain part of NCAA leadership right now and the people that work there in the enforcement division who are saying the University of Louisville broke the rules when they were already on probation for breaking the rules. That is something that really upsets them, and they don't like that.
In this community, and the University of Louisville has sold it to this community, we have fired everyone, so we should be fine. And I've told them 1,000 times, doing what is expected is not a plus.
I hear you, but you're old school.
It's not a plus.
It's not the way it works today. Everybody always wants to push back and not accept responsibility for what went on, right? You don't ever hear anybody say, yeah, I did it, and I need to take my punishment. You don't see that really in any of these things. Everybody's pushing back, and as you mentioned, some of these coaches have gotten contract extensions. Bruce Pearl,
still
right?
being paid. No, absolutely. Still being paid.
Will
Wade from suspended to unsuspended.
Yeah, LSU, they have showed the transcript of the wiretap of him talking about a strong ass offer.
Better than the rookie salary scale.
He's still there, and nobody thinks. Wouldn't you think? In the way you were brought up, somebody would say, if you said something like that, you're out.
Absolutely.
Right? But I mean,
Yes.
the mentality today is that that's our guy, we're going to defend him no matter what. And I'm with you. I don't like it. I don't.
Words mean things, and the
Yes,
truth has
sir.
been thrown out the door. Hopefully, the truth will come back to America and people will react properly, because the NCAA, without a doubt, Rick, it is repugnant for the way that they've acted with their coaches and the stance that they make with their players. They will suspend the student athlete simply for breaking a fingernail, without a doubt. But when they catch one of their gods, one of their idols that they overpay, it seems to be hard to do the right thing. A lot of times you have to follow the money. Institutions are supposed to be places of higher learning. They're not. You've got athletic institutions that are the tail wagging the dog. It's a billion-dollar industry, and they call it amateur athletics because they went to some judge and someone said, we agree with you, it's amateur athletics, even though your coach will make $50 million, $40 million. Do you know Sean Miller has in his contract, no matter what he does, they can fire him with cause, which this is it. It's one of the cheatingest coaches in college athletics. They still have to pay him $10 million. What institution would sign that, Rick, if they have any integrity? Who would do that?
I don't know, but I'm with you. I've always scratched my head over the way they do business, where let's look back to a few years ago when Tom Jurich brought Bobby Petrino back, when he gave him a contract extension and a salary increase when there was no other school in America that was going to try and hire him, right?
In America, absolutely.
There was no reason to do that, but he did it, right?
At a pay scale that was astronomical. If you were going to bring him back, he should have been playing, he should have been working for peanuts for the opportunity.
And then 2 years ago, this month, he was fired and he walked away with what? $14.1 million.
Of Louisville money.
What kind of good could be done with money like that at the University of Louisville for the athletes who live there, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's, you pull your hair out when you think about stuff like that.
Well, Rick, think of this. I want you to give me your response. I've done a lot of traveling in the world, but I've told a lot of people to go to Rome. You're going to see a lot of facilities sitting empty because they started to put money in facilities instead of people. Well, the NCAA has definitely done that. They're building monuments on every college campus saying, ooh, look at what we've done. And they're not investing in the people, nor the student athletes. They're using them for more money.
Where did you live when you played at U of L?
Miller Hall.
Right. And where did you practice?
Crawford Gym.
Yeah, and you kind of were
with the baseball team, the swimming team.
Were you sort of integrated with the rest of the students on campus? Huh?
Without a doubt.
Isn't it going the other direction?
Well, they're getting ready to build another athletic dorm on Louisville's campus.
The other one, how old is the other one?
Minority Hall.
15 years old, maybe?
It's got a bad name, Rick.
I know. It's got a stigma.
It's got a stigma. You know what I do? Change the name.
Louisville's not the only place. I mean, Kentucky had Wildcat Lodge. They were the first one to kind of do it, and now they upgraded to a better one. Alabama has them. It's everywhere, but it's money is spent on all those kinds of perks, but it's not actually given to the athletes for their performance. Correct?
Great point, because people don't understand the great housing, the great locker rooms, all of those social media things built into their locker. They don't take them with them when they leave. They leave them for the next athlete through. Then when they leave, they cannot replicate what they've just done the last 4 years. And you see all the issues that former student athletes have because they make them live at such a level for 4 years, 3 years, that when they leave, they're not prepared nor ready to replicate what they've done. All the way to the hotels that the coaches have them stay in, the Ritz-Carltons, the Waldorf Astorias, the better hotel. They're not staying in those hotels when they leave.
Well, I mean, aren't those facilities built for, I'll give you the main two. The number one is recruiting, impress recruits, say you can live here, other schools don't have a place like this. And two is control, so they can control the environment they're in and keep track of them.
Can't believe that, because Minority Hall said they didn't know a thing about anything. So that one is a scratch. Control. They control that no one knew anything. Last question, Rick, before we go.
Okay.
And I appreciate you sitting in with me.
Anytime.
If Coach Pitino coaches at Iona this year, the entire NCAA needs to be shut down. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, it's too soon for him to be back. It's too soon for him to be back.
For what my university is going to have to go through, if he's somewhere else coaching, the NCAA needs to turn it in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know all of his statements that he's made and he hasn't been directly involved with any of the rule breaking, but it's his program and it happened twice. And for him to go to Iona and be able to coach after he's been away from the game now, what, 3 years? Has it been 3 years?
Oh, 17, September.
Right.
17.
So he missed 3 seasons. He had one or two in Greece, whatever it was. But yeah, I agree with you. It's too soon.
It's too soon.
But Iona wants to win.
What does win mean? Does win mean cheat, or does win mean do it the right way? There's two different wins. Rick,
You're old
thank you.
school. You'll never survive in this world. You're old school.
I've done pretty well, Rick. 61, and I'm pushing pretty good. Rick Bosich, WDRB. You can find him almost every day. He's big time. This is Sports with Eaves. We appreciate you all sitting with us. God willing, I'll be back next week. Take care. Bye-bye.